paid the price and Jesus bore it all. I've heard them sing, I'm coming home, and heed the master's call. I've heard them sing the modern songs and songs of long ago. But amazing grace, so sweet the sound, is the sweetest song I know. Amazing grace, so sweet the sound, oh how sweet is the sound. No sweeter song in this life could be found. Heard about the Savior's blood, washed as white as snow. But amazing grace, so sweet the sound, is the sweetest song I know. It was the song my mother sang in sweet and humble voice. Like music from the world above, it made my soul rejoice. Its soothing words and melodies like the rippling waters flow. But amazing grace, so sweet the sound, is the sweetest song I know. Amazing grace, so sweet the sound, oh how sweet is the sound. Sweeter song in this life could be found. Heard about the Savior's blood, washed as white as snow. But amazing grace, so sweet the sound, is the sweetest song I know. Amazing grace, so sweet the sound, oh how sweet is the sound. Sweeter song in this life could be found. Heard about the Savior's blood, washed as white as snow. But amazing grace, so sweet the sound, is the sweetest song I know. But amazing grace, so sweet the sound, is the sweetest song I know. But amazing grace, so sweet the sound, is the sweetest song I know. But amazing grace, so sweet the sound, is the sweetest song I know. The sweetest, most wonderful song I know.
Put our service to the test. Tie your napkin around your neck, Sherry, and we provide the rest. Soup de jour, hot hors why we only live to serve. Try the grey stuff, it's delicious. Don't believe me? Ask the dishes. They can sing, they can dance. After all, miss, this is France, and the dinner here is never second best. Go on and fold your menu, take a glance, and then you'll be our guest. We are guest, be our guest.
Be our guest, be our guest. Our command is your request. It's 10 years since we got anybody here, and we're obsessed with your meal, with your meal. Yes, indeed, we introduce. While the candlestick's still glowing, let us help you with a keep going. Course by course, one by one, till you shout, enough, I'm done. Then we'll sing you off to sleep as you digest. Tonight you'll prop your feet up, but for now let's eat up, be our guest.
can be. Barely even friends, then somebody burns unexpectedly. Just a little change, small to say the least, but a little scared. Neither one prepared. Beauty and the Beast, ever just the same, just the same. Never a surprise, never as before, ever just as sure as the sun will rise. Certain as the sun, certain as the sun. Rising indeed. Says all the time, songs all that's rhyme. Beauty and the Beast. Tale is all that's time, song is all that's rhyme. Beauty and the
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this virtual camp organized by the IYF organization. My name is Frank Edwin, and I'm going to be speaking to you this evening on the challenges and opportunities in the post-COVID-19 world. Before I start, I want to thank the organizers of this camp for giving me the opportunity to address you and for the invitation to be part of this meeting. So as an introduction, I want to quickly go through what this COVID-19 is all about, and then I'll spend some time to talk about the challenges that this pandemic has posed all around the world. And then we'll spend some time and go through the opportunities and what you can do and how you can respond to this challenge to the benefit of your own life and to the people around you. Now, when we say COVID-19, what exactly is it about? Why is it important? Why is this talk important? First of all, we need to understand that COVID-19 is a disease. It's caused by a respiratory virus. We call it a novel respiratory virus. The reason we call it novel is because it's new. It is something we have not encountered before. This is a virus that has never been seen or experienced as a cause of disease in humans. And so we call it novel. You all know that it began in Wuhan in China. It rapidly spread across the entire globe. It's a highly infectious disease and it carries a substantial risk of death. That is very important. The whole world went into a shutdown in an attempt to limit the spread and reduce the number of deaths. And it is also the reason why it has become such an important issue. Another aspect of it that makes this important is that this is a crisis that is in evolution. We are still living in it. It's not over. There are many places in the world where when we began, we thought that they had escaped. Africa, for one, we thought that the number of cases for a long time was so low, people thought that Africa would be spared. But obviously, that has not happened. And because this is a crisis in evolution, there is great uncertainty regarding the future, especially of young people. What is going to happen? Everywhere I go, young people want to know what is going to happen and what can I do about it. So we have a global crisis. We have a crisis on our hand. And when we say a crisis, we are talking about an event that has got substantial physical, emotional, mental, and financial distress. It creates a lot of problems, a lot of uncertainties for a lot of people. And it's important also to know that this is not just a health crisis. It is not just something that affects health. It affects every aspect of society. It has affected every nation. It has affected every individual. It has touched almost every sphere of life, from health to education to business and finance to virtually anything you can name. So this is really indeed a health crisis. All right, but for us to be able to pick out what the opportunities are, we need to go through what the challenges are. what are the various challenges in the various sectors that we should be aware of? So let's take healthcare, for example. First and foremost is that the facility numbers are inadequate. The number of facilities in the country that are available or capable to treat anybody who gets this infection, we don't have enough. There are not enough facilities in the country. We don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough nurses, we don't have enough medically trained people to be able to handle that. So you can imagine now we say we are about 29,000. If the numbers escalate, we are going to be swamped with people with illnesses that we don't even have beds to admit them to. So that is a big problem. The other challenge in the healthcare area is the number of kits that we have to do testing. We don't manufacture these things in this country. We can only import them. And we don't have enough of the kits. Initially, when we started, we were doing a lot more aggressive testing. Now we are not doing that anymore. Our capacity has gone down. So we can't test as aggressively as we were doing before, which means that there are a lot of people who probably will carry the infection. We will not know about it. They are likely to pass it on to other people, and community spread is going to increase. The numbers of what you call personal protective equipment, that's another problem. This is equipment that health workers use to prevent themselves from getting infected as they care for people with infection. Again, we don't have enough of that. So that's another massive challenge. We don't have manufacturing capacity in this country. We are not making enough masks. We are not making enough gloves. We don't have enough ventilators and even people to man them. So all of these are problems. But probably the other aspect of it that people should be aware of is the fear and stigma that this disease brings out. A lot of people, when you mention COVID, that somebody has got COVID, the fear it evokes, because the moment you mention COVID, people are thinking about death. But there is also the aspect of stigma. People who have had the infection, who have recovered, who seem to be well and okay, nobody wants to get close to them. The reason they don't want to get COVID themselves. Now, the reason why it's important to understand these healthcare challenges is that it is from these that you are able to pick out the opportunities. So it's important that you know these are the challenges in the various areas, in the various sectors. So these are some of the healthcare challenges that are there. It creates opportunities. It's a problem, but it creates opportunities as well. Now, one aspect of that is mental health. Mental health. I talked about fear and anxiety. There are a lot of negative emotions that are related to this illness. Fear, anxiety, stress, anger, confusion. These are all emotions that people feel. And they are driven by people's concerns for safety, financial uncertainty. People are not working, they are not earning. They don't know whether their business is going to survive. Indeed, a lot of businesses have collapsed. And then people have a lot of negative and conflicting views. Today you hear, oh, if you touch this thing, you get COVID. The next thing you hear, no, the COVID is in the air. You only breathe it. Sometimes they say, no, it's not in the air. It's only when you touch it. So this is a problem. Conflicting news, it creates a lot of problem. Social isolation for people who have either had it or who are suspected to have had it, or even people who have recovered from it. People have a sense of perceived helplessness. They feel there's nothing they can do about it. So all these factors contribute to the negative emotions that people feel regarding this. And this make people take certain actions. For example, people overspend, they buy things they don't need. They go to the shop, they say, disinfectants are going to run out. They buy huge numbers of them. They say toilet rolls are going to run out. They buy huge numbers of them. Sanitizers, they buy large numbers. They are not going to use all these things, but it's the fear and anxiety surrounding this disease that's making people do that. Alcohol use has increased. People think they can drown away their fears by drinking it away. It doesn't work. But people are still doing that. In this country, we don't see a lot of suicides, but elsewhere, people have been driven into suicide by financial hardship that is accompanied, that this disease brings on. So these are some of the responses that people experience. So obviously, it tells you there is a clear need for people to support individuals because of the mental health and anxiety issues that are there. That by itself is an opportunity. The fact that there are so many people who need emotional support, who need counseling for this disease, that although it's a crisis, it is also an opportunity. Let's now look at education. What are the problems in education? The educational problem is potentially one of the greatest threats we have ever encountered in our lifetime, if I should say that. Because as of March, the end of March, more than 1.6 billion children and youth were out of school in 161 countries. So you can imagine this is roughly about 80% of the world's enrolled students who are stuck at home. They can't go to school because gatherings foster the spread of infection. If they are in school, they are likely to get infected, so they are stuck at home, they can't go to school. So education is a massive issue now because there are so many children, so many young people who are stuck at home, they can't go to school. So one of the biggest areas there with challenges is education. How do we address this issue? It's a challenge, it's also an opportunity. Then we look at the economy. The economy also has got massive problems. Businesses have collapsed. I told you that earlier. Jobs have disappeared. People don't have jobs. They are not earning. International trade has been a problem. People can't import. A lot of people were relying on imports for their trade. That doesn't happen anymore. Exports have been curtailed. So that's a problem. The global supply chain. Areas where people used to manufacture. You import something from one place, you combine it to do another thing. That doesn't work anymore. The global supply chain has been seriously affected. I told you earlier that governments are borrowing money just to keep running because they are not earning as much income as they were earning before. Food shortages because of all these travel restrictions and restrictions on imports. If you're a country where you don't produce enough food and you have to import food, that becomes a problem for you. And then in this country, one of the biggest issues is the restriction of gatherings. I myself was quite surprised. I wasn't aware how important things like funerals were in this country. But funerals are it's a massive business. A massive business. It's not just the fact that people go to funerals, but there are a whole lot of businesses that survive on funerals. Food and beverages, people who rent out chairs, people who rent out tents, people who rent out their spaces, people who rent chairs and all this. It's all a business. And once you say people can't gather and have funerals, all these businesses will suffer. So that is a huge issue. And then you take weddings, that's another one. People who were making food and all these things, people who were renting stuff, people who were renting spaces, it's all been affected. So it is a huge thing when you say people cannot gather because of this infection. So that is a massive challenge. But again, I say it is also a massive opportunity. Religious activities. Not too long ago, a friend was saying, I pray for the day we'll be able to go to church and sing again. It's going to be a long time coming if you look at the way this illness is evolving. Because again, the problem is when you gather the infection, it fosters spread of infection. So that's a problem. Most churches now have been forced to go online. But that also leaves out a whole group of people who don't have internet connectivity. How do they fellowship? How do they get into church? It's a huge problem. So that is another big challenge. Sports and entertainment. People used to thrive on soccer. There are a lot of people who, over the weekends, will use soccer as a relaxation. They go to the stadiums, they visit entertainment spots. All of that has been curtailed. Again, it's a problem. If you look around the world, you see Europa League, Champions League, all these leagues are in serious trouble because they can't afford to have spectators there. So these are all challenges. So we have a crisis on our hands, and in a crisis, what do? Most people instinctively look up to their governments. They look up to politicians to help them in terms of crisis. But what is clear with this pandemic is that the politicians have not been able to help that much. They've done their best, but this is a problem that none of us has encountered before. And so the recommendations coming from government sometimes seems confused. But if I were to take you back to Solomon, Solomon is the wisest man who ever lived. If I were to take you back to his advice, what he said in Proverbs 29 would make sense, because he said in Proverbs 29:26, he says, many seek an audience with a ruler, but it is from the Lord that man gets justice. In other words, what Solomon is saying is that there are many times we look to men in positions of authority to solve our problems. But if you really want the solution to your problem, the person you should look up to is the Lord. But the question you must ask ourselves is, where will the opportunities be? The opportunities we are talking about as being present in the crisis, where will they be? But not only that, we also need to address the issue of what skills would we need to be able to harness these opportunities? Because it's one thing knowing where the opportunities are, but if you don't have the skills to harness the opportunities, it's not going to help you. So we need to address the two. Where will the opportunities be? What skills will be required to harness them? Now, if you look at listen to all that I've said before about the problems and the challenges, the areas which are hardest hit are also the areas where the greatest opportunities are. Because opportunities actually arise out of need. It is the need of men that creates opportunities. So you need to go back and look at where are the needs, because where the needs are will tell you where the opportunities are likely to be. So you take healthcare. what are the needs? What are the needs? What are the needs in education? What are the needs in sales and marketing? There's a lot of informal workers in this country and in much of Africa. People who are not on salary, they have to go out and work and earn by the day. Their jobs have been affected. They have huge needs. International trade and supply lines, international travel, food and groceries. People used to go out to restaurants, sit and eat. That's no longer there. It's a huge need people have, the need for food. Religious activities. We know that now a lot of churches have gone online, but are they really meeting the needs of the people? There are people still with needs. So all of these tell you where the opportunities are likely to be. Funeral services, we spoke about that. Should we do funerals online? Is there any other way we can attend funerals? We can organize funerals in this country. Somebody can sit down and look at this and come up with a creative idea, and before you know, he's created a job for himself. That is how opportunities are made. That is how, but you need to know first that there is a need there is a problem there, and then you need to consider the area, see what you can do about it. Sports and entertainment, we've talked about that. So to be able to see where the opportunities are, the guide is look at the needs, and look at the areas where the needs will fit your own skill set. If you have strengths in certain areas, so I'm in healthcare, for example, the area that I'll probably see the need the most will be in healthcare. If you are in the area of religion, you probably see a need there. So look at the area that you are comfortable with, the area that you already have strength in. Look at the needs there, and they will guide you as to where the opportunities are likely to be. But then, as I said, it's one thing knowing what the needs are, one thing knowing that there is an opportunity here. But what skills do you need? I'm going to give you just 3 in this era, because those are 3 things that I think are essential to be able to access any opportunity in this particular era. The first, as I said, is being aware of the emerging needs in the community in which you are. So if you are in healthcare, what are the emerging needs? These needs were not there before. Take healthcare, for example. People used to get up, if they were ill, they just went to the doctor. But now they are afraid. If they go to the hospital, they will catch an infection. So they are sitting at home with their illness, and you are in healthcare. The question you ask yourself is, how do you reach people like that? If you are able to think through that, you begin to see an opportunity there. So being aware of the needs in your community is key. It's the first step, I think, that everybody needs to be able to develop. But people who are not in healthcare are not very likely to be able to see the need in healthcare, because it's not an area you are in. So you need to look at the area that you operate in, and then you'll be able to judge what needs are emerging in that area, and then you can see the opportunities in that area. But once you've seen the need, once you've seen that there is an opportunity there are some skill sets that you need. Skill sets. What skill sets do you need? The second thing you need is what I would call digital literacy. Some time ago, we used to say the person who was illiterate is somebody who couldn't read, who couldn't write, who couldn't do a little mathematics. If you didn't have it, you say you are illiterate. But in the world in which we live now, especially in this COVID era, if you don't have the capacity to deal in the digital space, you have a problem. The problem you have is that this era calls for digital literacy. A lot of things are going online, and if you don't have digital literacy, you're going to have a problem. I'll go a little bit into that. Then the next thing after you've done that is to be able to bring your creativity onto the scene. So creativity is the ability to create solutions. Being aware of the needs, you create the solution. But the digital literacy is what gives you the platform to be able to deliver that solution. So you need to get all 3. Now, I've talked a little bit about the awareness of emerging needs, that it is related to the area in which you work, the field in which you work. If you are in entertainment, if you are in education, you'll be able to see these needs there, because it's an area that you're already working in. You can see what is happening there. You can actually foresee problems before they come, because it's an area that you are working. So you need to take that seriously. Sometimes people are able to see needs that are not exactly in their area, but most of the time it is the area that you work in which you see these needs. So be mindful of that. Now, what about the digital literacy? This is a massive problem, especially for a lot of us in Africa. When computers came, people somehow thought that this thing is going to go away. And I remember very clearly there were people who were called copy typists. They had this big typewriter in front of them. You punch these words. The typewriter will go to punch a letter A on the paper, B on the end. That's how we used to do it. And people had gone to school to train for this. Then computers came. When computers came, you didn't need to do that anymore. But this was a new technology people had to learn. Some people decided they were not going to learn it. They are still going to stick to their typewriter. Now, if you did that, by now you don't have a job. The reason is that that technology is obsolete. And once it's obsolete, if that's all you have, you are in trouble. The world as it is now, from the time of the typewriter, we evolved to the digital space. Now, the pandemic has made it such that if you don't know how to navigate in that digital space, you are in very serious trouble. A lot of shops now will have to go online. People are no longer going to walk to your shop because of the risk of catching an infection. They rather want to type www.yourshoponline.com, something like that, and be able to look into your shop and see what is there. Does he have this shoe I'm looking for? Does he have this bag? If he has that, he will be able to make an order and pay you online. But the problem is, if you are not literate, then you can't put your shop online. And even when you do, you are at the mercy of other people. So the digital literacy is important. And there are several aspects of it that you need to pay attention to. One is navigation, being able to navigate the digital space. You are able to go to this website, you can go to this site, you can go to that site. You're able to find your way around. That is the ability to navigate the digital space. Then there is information literacy. Information literacy is to be able to search for the information that you need. So for example, you want to do a bakery. You want to bake bread, but you know it's going to be a problem. You want to put your shop online and you want to find out how many bakeries are there in your vicinity. Previously, you send somebody around to go. Now you don't do that anymore. What you do is you go online and type bakery. You do something called Google. Google will tell you all the bakeries that are around in certain spaces. If you want to find your way to some place that you don't know, previously somebody will call you and he will say, please, you walk on this road. When you get to the place where the watch seller is, you turn to the left. You see a tree hanging there, and it doesn't work anymore like that. Now people say, send me Google location. Where you are, send me your location by Google. And the person just sends you a location by Google. You put it into your phone. The navigation system tells you, drive 100 meters, and then you reach a place, it says 10 left, 10 right. Your destination is on your left. You've arrived. You have never been to this place. But the digital technology enables you to do that. That's information literacy. You need to be able to do that. Then you have what I would call production literacy. Production literacy is to be able to put your solution in a digital form. So you have a shop. You want people to come and shop online. Typical thing we have now is Amazon. Amazon has all the things that you want to order. They sell books, they sell clothes, they sell bags, they sell computers. But all you need to go to is www.amazon.com. And you type, what are you looking for? You say bags, you put in bags. It brings you all the bags that you want, this color, this shop, this location. And you can pick and do all of that. And then you can make your order. But for somebody to do that, somebody had to sit down and put all that idea together. That is production literacy. It is a digital thing. You need to learn it in this era, especially for young people, because you are the people who have the computers. You spend all your time on your phone doing WhatsApp, doing Facebook, doing all of this. But there's a lot more you need to learn. You need to learn how to produce stuff digitally. Because if you are not able to do that, the opportunity may be there, but you will not be able to access it. Then there's photovisual literacy. Photovisual literacy is being able to combine photos, images, videos online. Sometimes, somebody, these days, somebody put something online and say, hey, look, they are beating this man in China. He's Ghanaian, he's been beaten in China. I saw one image like that. And everybody was wondering, oh, are they really beating Ghanaians in China? And then it turns out somebody picked that image and digitally was able to assess where was this image taken. And they found the image was not even taken in China. The image was taken in America. So the information that has been put there is false. But it took somebody who was digitally aware, who was digitally savvy to be able to pick that up. So that is photovisual literacy, but it's a digital thing. You need to be able to do that to be able to navigate your way around. Then the other thing which is very important for you, especially if you are going to do any form of online marketing, is what I call web presence. Web presence is, if we are looking for you online, can we find you? If somebody types your name, Kwabena Mensah, and clicks Google search, what will come up? Will we see you there? Will you be represented there? That is having a web presence. A web presence means that if people are looking for you, they put in your name or they put in your particulars, put in your details, they should be able to find you somewhere. You should be able to find you somewhere. So the web presence is extremely important. But one of the things that I find young people do, which is particularly not helpful sometimes, is people don't discriminate as to what information they put online. I mean, you go and take a photo somewhere, you put it online on Facebook. You want all your friends to see you are doing this, it's on Facebook. You are doing that, it's on Facebook. You are chatting here, it's on Facebook. And sometimes that is information that is needless that people can use to actually harm you. So whilst you are looking at web presence, you also need to consider your online safety. Your online safety, that is important. So that in a nutshell gives you an idea of what digital literacy is. As I said, if you don't master it, if you don't learn it, if you don't get that, the opportunity may be there, but you may not be able to access. So that's a very important skill that everybody needs in this particular era. The next skill that we need to be able to access opportunity is creativity. Creativity is actually now being able to come up with the solutions. So you have been able to identify a need. You can see that there's a problem there. You know people need this particular thing or that particular thing. And you have to now be able to use your mind, be able to use your imagination, be able to think through the solutions and bring out a solution to address that need that you see. But to do that, you need to do a lot of things. You know, you need to think through, imagine, think about what can solve this problem, think about what can solve that. And if after you've come up with something, you have to test it. Test, does this solution actually work before you put it out there? So creativity is the third skill that we all need to be able to access opportunities in this era. I want to give you some concrete examples of how this approach is used, recognizing opportunity in crisis and solving problems with it. Some of you might have heard of this young man called Richard Quartin, who went around, used the example of the Veronica bucket. The Veronica bucket, as you are aware, is that contraption which gives you a plastic bowl of water. You wash your hands before you enter any shop. That's what is there. But this gentleman looked at it and realized that it doesn't actually solve all the problems. You could actually create another solution where you don't have to touch the bucket, you don't have to touch the soap, and you can still get the same effect. I want you to watch this video and see how this works in practice.
The system is powered by solar, which is a green energy. The barrel is recycling. The water has a time limit that we've calculated for 25 seconds, which means we are saving also water. We're able to produce 10 in a day. So far, we've completed 55 to fight COVID-19.
Then there is another one, which was developed by some group of young doctors in Nigeria. So what they realized was that there were all these patients who were coming to hospitals. They will have these numbers to call centers. They will call the call center to check on whether they can come and they can come and do the COVID test. And then they realized that there were so many people backed up behind the call lines. The call lines were always choked. So they thought these people wanted to find out whether it was worth going to do a COVID test. They needed somebody to talk to. But the system that was in place didn't make it feasible for that to happen. You had so many people coming there. So these guys came up with the idea of, if you are going to screen somebody for COVID, there are certain basic questions that doctors would ask you. They will ask you, do you have a cough? Do you have fever? Have you had contact with somebody? Have you recently been exposed to somebody who traveled from a high zone, a high COVID area? And they realized, why don't you put this on a digital platform? So if somebody is coming and he wants to make a call to the call center to be able to get through to do the COVID test, he doesn't have to do that. All he has to do is go to this web application, answer these questions, and the web application will tell you your risk of whether you have a high risk of getting COVID or not. And again, it's a powerful, powerful, powerful creativity, using that creativity to solve a problem. And they've created a business for themselves with that. So that is, again, somebody seeing a need, addressing a problem, and creating a solution for. We are in a COVID state, people are losing jobs, but he's created one. So these are some of the ways, concrete ways in which you can see opportunity in the areas which you are, use your skill sets and benefit the people that come to you. So to close, let me say we are in a crisis, we have a crisis, but we also have to appreciate that it still presents us with a lot of opportunities. Rather than sit down and bemoan the disruption of education, look for new ways in which you can learn. Rather than complain that unemployment is high and is rising, look at the needs in your community that presents opportunity for creating new jobs, and you may solve that problem. You may have lost loved ones in this pandemic, but you are still here. So be creative and make a contribution that will glorify the one who has kept you alive in this pandemic. Well, I hope you've been blessed by this presentation. Thank you for your attention, and may God richly bless you.